Why was she the only one not speaking at the table? The room buzzed with tension, voices colliding like waves against steel walls. Men leaned forward, maps spread, pens scratching circles around coordinates that meant little to anyone who wasn't already numb to violence. And yet in that storm of confidence she sat silent, not timid, not weak, just waiting. Her hands rested flat on the table, fingers steady, but her eyes drifted to a crack in the concrete wall, thin as a scar. No one noticed, no one asked, and maybe that was the point. She didn't belong here, not really, not to them. The briefing officer's voice cut sharp through the air. "This will not be easy, we're going to lose people." He paused, eyes roaming the table. They skipped her, like she wasn't even in the room, like she was a ghost wearing a uniform. And for a moment, she liked it that way. Because if they had asked her thoughts, if they had really seen her, she would have had to tell them something she wasn't ready to share. Not yet. Her throat tightened with the weight of memory. She reached for her water canteen, sipped slowly, the metallic taste of aluminum and chlorine stinging her tongue. It wasn't thirst. It was a cover, a way to keep her mouth shut. The mission briefing droned on, the enemy stronghold, the supply lines cut off, a village caught between fire from both sides. Words, just words, but behind every word she could see faces. A woman dragging her child behind a collapsed wall, a farmer with dust on his hands clutching nothing but silence as soldiers swept through his land. She had seen them before, not here, somewhere else. And those memories had followed her, carved into her like initials on old wood. Her role hadn't been called yet. That suited her. She wanted to know how long they'd keep pretending she wasn't essential. She wanted to know how long strength could remain invisible before someone was forced to acknowledge it. The commander finally looked at her. "You'll take high ground, rooftop 3 clicks east, you know what to do." No explanation, no validation, just expectation. And she nodded, one small, sharp motion, because words weren't always necessary. But inside her chest, her heart beat a little faster, not from fear of the mission. That part was muscle memory drilled into her bones. What rattled her was what lay after the mission. The silence, the return, the question of whether anyone would see her then, not as a weapon, not as a shadow, but as someone who bled quietly in places no one asked to see. The meeting ended in scraping chairs, muttered curses, bravado masking nerves. Boots echoed down the hall. One of the younger soldiers, Miller, barely 20, freckles still breaking across his cheeks, brushed past her and offered a smile that wasn't quite steady. "You'll keep us covered, right?" he asked. Her lips curved, not a smile, not really, always. But something in her voice made him hesitate, like maybe there was a depth he couldn't read. He nodded quickly, embarrassed by his own question, and hurried out. She remained seated until the room was empty. Her fingers traced the scarred wooden table, feeling the dents carved by years of elbows, weapons, and nervous hands. This wasn't the first table she'd sat at. And in another life, another war, another version of herself, she might have laughed at how all these tables blurred into one. Different places, same ghosts. The silence pressed in. She let it. Sometimes silence was the only honest companion left. Outside, the air smelled of dust and jet fuel. Helicopters thumped in the distance, rhythmic, heavy, like a second heart in the sky. She closed her eyes, let the sound wash over her, then opened them again to the light bleeding through clouds. Gray light, fitting. She checked her gear. Rifle, scope, ammunition, small things, important things. The weight felt familiar against her back, her shoulders, like bones of a second skeleton she carried everywhere. But before she slung it on, she reached into her pocket. Her fingers brushed the frayed edge of a folded photograph. She hesitated. Not now, she thought, not before. If she looked at it now, the mission would blur. Her focus would splinter. And yet she pulled it out anyway. The image was faded, colors bleeding into each other, but the shape was clear enough. A child's grin, missing tooth, eyes bright with something she hadn't seen in years, innocence untouched by war. Her thumb pressed over the corner where a faint crease cut through half the smile. She exhaled, long, steady, almost bitter. Then she tucked it away again. Not yet. Her boots crunched gravel as she moved toward the transport. Voices gathered there, soldiers trading crude jokes, covering fear with laughter. She walked among them without joining. That was her place, in the edges. She didn't resent it, not anymore. The edges gave her space to think. One of them, Ramirez, a broad-shouldered man with eyes too old for his age, caught her glance and held it a beat longer than most dared. He didn't smile, didn't joke, just nodded once like an unspoken pact. He knew something about edges too. The chopper blades roared louder, kicking dust into the air, stinging her eyes. She climbed in, crouched low against the vibrating metal floor. Around her the others shouted to be heard. She didn't. She stared at her hands, palms scarred with fine white lines. She remembered where each one came from. Every line a story. Every mark a whisper of strength no one else had noticed. The bird lifted. The ground fell away. And with it, the thin line between who she was here and who she had to be up there. Her breath slowed, her pulse steadied. And still that thought lingered. What would happen if she told them the truth? If she let them see past the weapon, past the uniform, past the silence? Not yet, she told herself, not yet. The mission was waiting. And so was the weight of everything she carried inside. What did silence sound like when the world around you was noise? She found out in the moment. The helicopter pitched low, wind battering the open doors, soldiers gripping their rifles tighter as the desert floor rose to meet them. The rotors thundered, dust clawed at her eyes. Shouts crackled through headsets, coordinates, timing, callsigns. Yet inside her there was only quiet, a deep, unsettling quiet. She pressed her shoulder to the metal frame and stared past the door gunner into the blur of land below, broken houses, cracked roads, a dry riverbed that hadn't known water in years. And somewhere in that wasteland was a rooftop waiting for her, a place where she would do what no one else could, or would. The chopper jolted sideways as gunfire sparked from the ridge. Tracers cut the air. Men cursed. She didn't flinch. Her hand slid across her rifle, steady, practiced. She didn't fire, not yet. That wasn't her role. Her role came when chaos had settled into patterns, when targets revealed themselves not by noise but by stillness. Her breathing slowed, 1, 2, 3, like waves against a shore. The pilot shouted something, words lost in the roar. Then, with a hard drop that sent stomachs lurching, the helicopter hit the landing zone. Boots slammed to the dirt. Soldiers spilled out, ducking low, weapons raised. She moved last, dropping into a crouch, rifle hugged close. Dust swallowed her whole. And there it was again, silence inside the noise. The team pushed forward, forming a perimeter, their breaths ragged in the comms. She broke away, alone, east toward the broken structures that jutted from the earth like fractured teeth. No one called after her. No one asked if she needed backup. They knew better. Every step crunched gravel beneath her boots, the rhythm of movement merging with her heartbeat. The air smelled of heat, that strange, metallic tang of sun-baked earth and cordite carried by wind. Her rooftop was waiting. She reached the skeletal remains of a 2-story building, its staircase half collapsed, bricks scattered like bones. She climbed, careful, deliberate, boots pressing against unstable stone. The structure groaned but held. At the top, the city spread before her, if it could be called a city. Buildings gutted by fire, windows shattered, rooftops scarred by years of gunfights. And in the middle, faint plumes of smoke rising where the enemy waited. She lowered herself flat on the rooftop, rifle unfolding with a mechanical whisper. The bipod kissed the concrete. Her cheek pressed against the stock. Her eye found the scope. The world narrowed. Movement flickered across her sight, shadows darting between ruins, muzzle flashes erupting, soldiers on both sides pinned down in streets littered with debris. She exhaled, slow, patient. The sound of her breath fogged faintly inside her headset, the only reminder that she was still human. Through the scope she found one figure, a man climbing behind a mounted gun, laughter spilling from his lips as he prepared to rake fire across her team. Her finger tightened. A squeeze, not a pull. The crack split the air. The man fell backward, his laughter silenced. And still no one saw her. Another figure appeared, another shot, another silence. She wasn't counting. She never counted, because it wasn't numbers she carried, it was faces, always faces. The comms erupted with voices. We're moving up, cover fire, push, push. She didn't answer, she just did her job, shot after shot, breath after breath. Each one timed between the pounding of her heart, each one precise. And still inside her chest something gnawed. Not guilt, not pride, something harder to name. Her fingers brushed against her pocket again. The photograph was there, pressing against her thigh, warm now with body heat. She didn't pull it out. She couldn't. Not when the scope was filled with enemies. Not when hesitation meant lives lost. But she felt it, every second, as if it burned a hole straight through the fabric, demanding she remember. A voice cut through the comms. Ramirez, calm, low, always steady. Eyes on the window, second floor, building south. Can't move my squad. She shifted, the scope swept. A curtain fluttered, dust rising. And then there. A shadow framed against cracked plaster. Rifle aimed down, waiting for her men to step into the open. She exhaled, the shot cracked, the shadow dropped. Copy, Ramirez said. No thanks, no praise, just trust, that was enough. Her hands didn't shake, they never shook. But her chest tightened as the minutes dragged into hours, the battle stretching long. She felt the sun shift, shadows crawling across ruins, light turning harsh and golden. Sweat pooled at the base of her neck, sliding under her collar. Her lips tasted of dust. And through it all, silence hummed inside her. A silence that wasn't peace, a silence that was weight. She thought of voices she hadn't heard in years. A child's laugh. A woman's hum while cooking dinner in a small kitchen, radio static in the background. She thought of the last letter she had never answered. The words scrawled in pencil, edges smudged. She thought of what she owed, debts written not in money but in promises whispered to the dead. A crack of gunfire pulled her back, close, too close. She rolled sideways, shoulders slamming into concrete as a bullet sparked off the rooftop near her head. Sniper, not her. Another. Her pulse surged, but her movement stayed measured. She crawled low, scope searching. Window to window, rooftop to rooftop. Nothing. Then glint. Her finger tight, the shot rang, the glint vanished. She stayed still, breath shallow. One beat, two, three, no return fire. Silence reclaimed the rooftop. She exhaled through her teeth, the hiss sharp in her headset. Then she whispered, so low only she could hear, not today. The team's voices surged again, streets clearing, push advancing. The mission was moving forward. But she stayed where she was, alone, flat against concrete, the photograph burning a hole in her pocket. And she wondered, not for the first time, when this was over, when the noise stopped, would she finally tell them? Would she let the silence break? Not yet. For now she was just the whisper in the distance, the one they never saw, the one they always counted on. And as the sun dipped lower, shadows lengthening, she shifted her scope again, waiting for the next figure to emerge. Her finger hovered, patient. Her heartbeat slowed to match the rhythm of the dying day. The rooftop held her, the silence carried her. And somewhere in the smoke and ruins below, the ghosts of her past waited for her to finally listen. How long could a person stay, invisible, before the world noticed? The rooftop had become her universe. Hours stretched, each one an echo of breath, each trigger squeeze a punctuation mark in a story no one would ever read aloud. The smoke below thickened, curling through streets like restless spirits. The team pushed deeper into the ruins, their voices fading in and out of her headset, sometimes sharp with adrenaline, sometimes hushed with fear. But her own channel stayed quiet. She spoke only when necessary, she always had. A dry wind scraped across the rooftop, carrying grit that stung her eyes. She blinked once, twice, then pressed her cheek back against the stock of her rifle. The scope glass framed another fragment of the city: crumbled walls, bullet-pocked facades, the skeletal outline of a school where children hadn't recited lessons in years. She swept across it slowly, steady as a tide. There, a flicker of movement. She froze, breath caught halfway. Not a fighter, not armed. A woman, thin as reeds, clutching something in her arms as she darted between shadows. Her scarf whipped in the wind, pale blue against the gray ruin, and pressed to her chest a child. Her finger lingered on the trigger, instinct screaming readiness. But her gut recoiled. The scope trembled faintly as she shifted, watching instead of acting. The woman disappeared into an alley, gone. She let out a slow, uneven breath. Her headset crackled, Miller's voice young, sharp, too eager. "We're seeing movement east, possible reinforcements. Anyone got eyes?" Her scope swept back. Nothing but empty windows. The woman hadn't been reinforcements. She hadn't been a threat, but Miller didn't know that. And if he stumbled into that alley, if he raised his weapon first. She tapped her mic, voice level. "Negative east, hold position, wait." Silence, then Miller's reply, uncertain. "Copy." She didn't elaborate, she never did. But in her chest something twisted, a decision made, a small act unseen. Her finger brushed her pocket again, the photograph. It burned against her skin as if reminding her of why she couldn't pull the trigger on the innocent. Not ever, not again. Her jaw clenched, memory surged unbidden, unwelcome. Another place, another rooftop, another war. Her daughter's face, younger, rounder, framed by curls that caught sunlight. A last hug at an airport, promises whispered like prayers. "I'll come back. I'll see you again." And the weight of a child's trust pressed into her chest as if it could anchor her forever. She blinked hard, focus, not now, not here. But the silence inside her cracked, just for a moment. "Eyes up," Ramirez's voice cut through. Calm, grounding, always steady. She forced herself back into the scope. Her pulse slowed, her world narrowed again. And then she saw him. An enemy fighter creeping along a rooftop opposite hers, rifle raised, scanning for her men. His movements were careful, patient, not like the reckless ones. This one knew what he was doing. She aligned the crosshairs, breath measured. But something about his posture stopped her. He wasn't much older than Miller, a boy pretending at war, carrying the weight of men who had come before him. His shoulders sagged when he thought no one was watching. His eyes darted, nervous, betraying the fear in his chest. Her finger tightened, her heartbeat slowed. And still she hesitated. What did it mean, to be judge and executioner in a world that had already lost its balance? The man shifted, rifle angling downward. If she didn't act, Ramirez's squad would walk straight into his line of fire. Her breath broke, the silence inside screamed. The shot cracked, the boy fell. Her body stayed still, but her soul bent under the weight of another face added to her memory. The headset filled with motion again, soldiers advancing, streets clearing, the mission unraveling thread by thread. But her mind wasn't here anymore. It had drifted back across years to a time when she had promised herself she would never become numb, when each life taken would matter, when she would carry them all. The photograph pressed harder into her thigh as if demanding she look again. She didn't, not yet. A shadow fell across her rooftop. She turned fast, rifle swinging, then stopped. Ramirez. He moved with deliberate steps, crouching low, eyes scanning before settling on her. No words at first, just silence between two people who understood too much. Finally he spoke, "How many?" She didn't answer. He didn't push. He lowered himself beside her, leaning back against the broken wall, rifle across his knees. His face was drawn, sweat streaking dust across his skin. His eyes stared out at the smoke, unblinking. "I had to shoot a kid once," he said suddenly, voice flat, but the tremor beneath it was there. Thought I'd get used to it, you don't. She turned her gaze back through her scope, found nothing but ruins. You don't, she echoed softly. They sat in silence, not the comfortable kind, not the empty kind, a silence heavy with things neither would say out loud. Ramirez shifted, pulling something from his vest, a strip of cloth torn and frayed. He held it out, fingers curling around it as if reluctant to let go. From my sister's scarf, he said. She sent it before he didn't finish. He didn't have to. She didn't take it. She just nodded once, the kind of nod that said more than words could. And then she whispered, so low he almost didn't hear, I carry one too. Her hand brushed her pocket. His eyes flicked to it, but he didn't ask. He didn't need to. A voice cracked through the comms. Command, urgent. Secondary objective confirmed. Civilians trapped in Sector 7. Extraction needed. Her chest tightened. Civilians. The woman with the blue scarf. She looked at Ramirez. He was already staring back. Neither spoke, but both knew. This wasn't about orders anymore. This was about choices. And sometimes, choices whispered louder than orders ever could. She adjusted her scope, scanning toward Sector 7. Smoke thick, shadows moving, figures shifting. Somewhere in that chaos, a woman and child were waiting. Her finger brushed the trigger, but for the first time that day, she wasn't aiming to end a life. She was aiming to protect one. And for the first time, she let herself whisper into the comms, voice soft but steady. I've got them. The rooftop became her heartbeat again. But this time, it beat for more than war. What happens when the mission on paper no longer matches the mission in your heart? The question clung to her as she adjusted the scope, tracking the ruins of Sector 7. Smoke writhed above broken roofs, curling like black veins into the sky. Bursts of gunfire lit windows in stuttering flashes. Civilians, trapped, forgotten. Through her scope she caught glimpses. A boy's arm dragging across stone as he pulled himself forward. A man pressing his back against a door that wouldn't hold. And there, a flicker of pale blue scarf disappearing into shadow. Her jaw clenched, the same woman she had seen before. The child pressed tight to her chest, still alive, still running. The comms buzzed with orders. We can't divert resources, push on primary, secondary will wait. Her stomach tightened. Wait, civilians didn't wait, they bled. They vanished into statistics no one wanted to read aloud. Ramirez shifted beside her, scanning the street with his binoculars. His silence was louder than orders. Sector 7 is crawling, he muttered, voice low. They'll never make it out on their own. She lowered her scope, looked at him. You know what command said, she whispered. He didn't flinch. Yeah, I also know what's right. Her chest filled with the weight of choice. Orders versus conscience. Mission versus humanity. How many times had she promised herself she wouldn't blur that line? How many times had she already crossed it? Her fingers grazed the pocket again. The photograph. The missing tooth. The grin that belonged to someone waiting far away, someone who deserved a world where mothers and children didn't die in alleys of forgotten cities. She inhaled sharply, decision solidifying like stone. I'll cover them, she said. Ramirez's eyes locked on hers, a beat of silence. Then he nodded once. No argument, no hesitation. She shifted her rifle, angling toward the street where the woman darted between ruins. The child stumbled, legs too short, too scared. Bullets spat dust into the air around them. She fired. One shot. Then another. Enemies dropped, bodies collapsing like puppets with strings cut. Move, she whispered under her breath, though the civilians couldn't hear her. Just move. The woman froze, scanning the rooftops as if sensing something, as if feeling the presence of an unseen guardian. Then she dragged the child forward again. Her finger tightened on the trigger, scope sweeping ahead of them, cutting down threats one by one. Every shot was a promise kept. Every exhale a prayer that they'd make it another 20 steps. But it wasn't enough. Her headset crackled. Miller's panicked voice. "We're pinned. East Street can't push through." She cursed under her breath, swung her scope. He was right. A barricade bristled with rifles, enemy fighters shouting as they poured fire into the advancing squad. Miller huddled behind a wall, fear raw in his tone. She had two choices: keep covering the civilians or save her team. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Don't make me choose," she whispered. But the world didn't hear her. The world never did. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, and then instinct, duty, something deeper, it guided her hands. She shifted scope, fired 3 precise shots. The barricade cracked open. Ramirez's voice roared in her headset, driving the men forward. Miller shouted, relief flooding his tone. And when she swung her scope back, the alley was empty. Her stomach dropped. She swept left, right, desperate. Nothing, no pale blue scarf, no child, gone. "Damn it," she hissed. Ramirez leaned in. "We'll find them." But his voice carried doubt, and she heard it. She stayed locked in her scope until the streets blurred into shadow, until her eyes burned, until she finally let the rifle fall to her lap, her hands trembling for the first time that day. The photograph burned against her thigh, unforgiving. She pulled it out, thumb tracing the crease through the missing tooth. Smile. Her lips parted, words spilling in a whisper meant for no one. "I'm trying, I swear I'm trying." Ramirez pretended not to hear. The squad pushed deeper into the city, their voices fading into distance. She and Ramirez stayed back, rooftop guardians, ghosts above the chaos. And in the pause between gunfire, silence fell again, heavy, suffocating. She thought of the last time she'd held her daughter, the way small arms clung with desperate strength, the way her child had whispered, "Don't be gone too long," the way she had lied, smiling, promising it would be quick. She thought of how long it had been since that day, and how many lies she'd told herself since. The radio cracked, pulling her back. Enemy movement regrouping north, all units advance. Ramirez glanced at her. "That's us." She nodded, packed her rifle, slung it across her back. But as she stood, she glanced once more toward the ruins of Sector 7. The smoke had thickened, swallowing streets whole. If the woman and child were still alive, they were buried in shadow. The weight in her chest grew heavier. Not failure, not yet, but something close. She and Ramirez descended the broken staircase, boots striking stone, echoing like heartbeats in hollow bones. The squad's voices guided them north, toward another fight, another set of orders that cared nothing for the blue scarf or the child. The street smelled of gunpowder and iron. Shadows stretched long in the setting sun, painting everything in blood-red light. She tightened her grip on her rifle, her pulse sinking with the rhythm of boots against dust. And as they rejoined the squad, Miller's face lit at the sight of them. Relief, trust, blind, desperate trust. "You saved us," he said, breathless. She didn't answer. She couldn't, because for every soldier she saved, she wondered how many civilians vanished while she looked away. Her silence was her reply. The squad pushed forward again, weaving between ruins, hearts racing, breath ragged. And in the middle of it all, she walked like a shadow, quiet, invisible, carrying the photograph in her pocket and the ghosts of choices no one else would ever see. And above them all, the sky burned with the last light of day, a reminder that time was running out, that strength wasn't measured in noise but in whispers. And hers were growing louder. Why did she suddenly feel the coldest chill, even though the desert sun was burning overhead? It wasn't the heat, not the fatigue, not even the dust scratching the inside of her throat. It was the silence in her earpiece, the silence where voices should have been. She pressed the side of her helmet again, hopping for static, for anything. Nothing came. No command, no confirmation, no team. The desert stretched in every direction, cruel and endless. Heat waves blurred the horizon, and every dune looked like it was hiding something. She swallowed, her lips dry, her voice barely a whisper. "Command, this is Vega. Do you copy?" Nothing, just her own pulse in her ears. She blinked back the sting of sweat, her eyes darting across the broken village walls ahead. They were supposed to push in together, clear the target building. Extract. Simple, at least on paper. But somewhere between the planning room and this burning ground, simplicity died. A crow circled overhead, its wings slicing through the air with a sound too loud in her mind. She crouched lower behind a collapsed wall, rifle tight against her chest. For the first time since the mission began, she felt it, fear pressing against her ribs, not for herself, not for the danger, but for them, her team, the ones she'd trusted, the ones who trusted her. She shut her eyes for a moment. In the darkness behind her lids, memories came uninvited. Her brother's smile, his last words before he left for a mission of his own years ago, words she carried like a shadow. "Don't let silence fool you, Lee. It's not always safety. Sometimes it's the storm holding its breath." She opened her eyes again, and just then the storm broke. Gunfire cracked through the stillness. Echoes bounced between ruined walls. Shouts distant, panicked. Her breath caught, her instincts firing before her thoughts. She moved, low, swift, each footstep measured. The voice in her head repeated one word: closer. She had to get closer. The alleys were tight, dust clinging to her boots, shadows cutting the light. Every corner held a question: enemy or friend, death or relief. She scanned, her training a rhythm she could trust. Yet beneath it, her heart betrayed her, beating too fast, too loud. Then she saw it. Two figures, her own men, pinned down behind a wrecked vehicle. Sparks flew where bullets struck metal. One of them clutched his shoulder, blood soaking his sleeve. The other was firing back blindly, desperation more than precision. Her chest squeezed. She wanted to call out, but noise meant death, so she moved, quiet as shadow, careful as breath. Her rifle lifted, her eye narrowing through the scope. Shapes emerged in the distance. The enemy, shadows darting between doorways, rifles raised. She exhaled, squeezed. The first target dropped. A pause, another shot. The second fell. The pinned men glanced back, eyes wide, relief written on their dirt-streaked faces. They didn't need words, they knew. She gave a sharp hand signal, "Move," now, and they obeyed. One staggered, limping but alive. The other supported him, leaning into her cover fire. She stepped back, covering steady. Each shot she took felt like more than metal and powder. It felt like a promise kept. "You're not alone, not while I'm breathing." When the last enemy figure disappeared into the dust, there was a silence heavier than before. A silence that demanded they breathe, but only in whispers. One of the men, Ortiz, lowered himself to the ground, clutching his bleeding arm. His lips trembled, but he forced out words. "I thought we were done." She knelt beside him, pulling out gauze, hands steady despite the storm inside her. "You're not today." He gave a weak laugh, though pain cracked through it. "Ma'am, you sound just like him. Always said the same thing." Her eyes flickered. She didn't ask who. She didn't need to. Everyone carried ghosts out here. The other soldier, Malik, shifted uneasily. His eyes darted toward the horizon. This wasn't random. They knew we'd come this way. They were waiting. She tied off the bandage, her jaw tightening. She already knew. This wasn't a mission gone wrong. This was something else. A trap, a test, maybe both. And for the first time, the question she'd buried since the start clawed its way up. Did someone betray them? She didn't voice it, not yet, but the seed was there, growing in the silence. As the sun dropped lower, stretching long shadows across the village, she made the call. "We move at nightfall, no sooner." The wounded man groaned, but she steadied him with a look. Her voice was soft, almost kind. "I know it hurts, but darkness is our only cover now." Night fell like a curtain, and with it the world shifted. The village grew alive with strange noises, doors creaking, whispers carried by wind, dogs barking at nothing. Every step they took was swallowed by blackness, yet every sound seemed louder. She led the way, rifle up, breath controlled. Behind her, Malik supported Ortiz, their weight dragging slower than she wanted. But she wouldn't leave them, not now, not ever. Halfway through the alley, a light flared in the distance. A lantern, then another. Movement. She froze, hand raised. Shapes moved ahead, too many, too fast. Her throat tightened. This wasn't random patrol. This was deliberate, coordinated. And then, like a cruel echo from her past, a voice broke the night. Low, confident, American. Well, well, Vega, I was starting to think you wouldn't make it. Her blood turned cold. It wasn't the enemy she expected. It was someone else. Someone who knew her name. Someone who shouldn't be here. Malik stiffened. Ortiz whispered, almost afraid. Who the hell is that? But she knew. She knew before the voice finished speaking. Because ghosts didn't just haunt. Sometimes they came back wearing a smile. And this ghost, it was tied to the secret she had carried since the very beginning. The one she never told them. Not yet. The night held its breath, waiting for her answer. Who was he to speak her name like that, here, of all places? Her body went rigid, every muscle coiled between fight and disbelief. The desert air felt colder now, even with sweat soaking her back. That voice, too clear to mistake, too familiar to forget. She wanted to breathe, to steady herself, but her lungs betrayed her. Her team shifted behind her, waiting, watching. Show yourself, she called out, her tone sharper than she intended. A pause. Then boots crunched against gravel, slow, deliberate, until a figure stepped into the half-light of the lantern glow. Her heart sank. Captain Reese. Once her mentor. Once the man who vouched for her when nobody else believed she could belong in this world of shadows and steel. Once the voice that told her she was stronger than she knew. Now, standing in the ruins with enemies at his back. Malik's breath caught. Ortiz muttered under his, no, this doesn't make sense. But she said nothing. Her eyes locked on Reese, searching for something, an answer, a trace of the man she remembered. He smiled, faint and cruel. You look just like him when you're angry. Her stomach twisted. He was talking about her brother. The words sliced deeper than bullets. She felt every ounce of restraint crack inside her, but she stayed still. Stillness was the only weapon she had left. Her rifle was up, but her hands trembled, invisible beneath the shadows. Reese noticed. He always noticed. Put it down, he said softly, like he was asking a favor. You're not here to fight me. Her chest rose and fell, her pulse hammering in her ears. Then what am I here for? He tilted his head almost kindly, to listen. The men behind him shifted. Foreign uniforms, local fighters, rifles raised, waiting for his signal. Yet they didn't fire, not yet. That was the strangest part. She narrowed her eyes. You're working with them. No, Reese's voice was calm, too calm. They're working with me. 1,000 questions slammed into her mind. Betrayal, survival, lies. She wanted to spit them all at him, but her throat stayed locked. Instead, she said only one word. Why? He stepped closer into clearer light. His face was older than she remembered, more tired, but his eyes burned with conviction. Because the war we thought we were fighting isn't the real war, he said. Because we've been pawns in someone else's game. And because I refuse to bury more of my people for lies. The silence that followed was unbearable. Malik shifted, his voice sharp, cutting. He's lying, don't listen to him. Ortiz winced, clutching his arm tighter. Then why hasn't he killed us yet? Her own thoughts mirrored both. Suspicion, doubt, but underneath it all something darker, recognition. Because his words echoed things she herself had thought late at night when the weight of the missions pressed too heavy, when she asked herself if any of it mattered, if her brother's death had been for truth or for someone's hidden plan. Reese saw it in her eyes. He always did. That doubt you carry, he whispered, stepping even closer. It's not weakness, it's clarity. She shook her head, her voice cracking. No, you don't get to twist that. But her conviction wavered. The men around him adjusted grips on their rifles, a breath away from ending everything. Yet Reese held up a hand, still commanding even here. They obeyed. "Vega," he said softly, like he was saying her name for the first time. "You don't have to choose tonight, just survive. Walk with me, hear me out, then decide." Behind her, Malik hissed, "You walk with him, you're dead. Worse, you're gone." Her hands tightened around the rifle, the steel biting into her palms. She looked at Reese, at the familiar scar above his brow, the same one he earned covering for her years ago, and she hated him for still feeling familiar. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "You think survival is enough?" Reese's eyes glinted, unreadable. "It's the only thing that matters until you see the truth." Her breath shook. Survival, truth, loyalty, they twisted in her chest like knives. For a moment she imagined lowering her rifle. Just 1 second of release, of laying down the burden. But then she thought of her brother's final letter. The line she memorized. "If you ever wonder who to trust, trust the ones bleeding next to you." Her gaze flicked to Malik and Ortiz. Broken, exhausted, but still here. Still hers. She inhaled steady this time, then exhaled. "I don't walk with traitors," she said. The night shattered. Reese's smile vanished, his hand dropped, and the men behind him raised their rifles. Her reflexes snapped faster than thought. She fired first. Sparks lit the alley. Gunfire roared. Malik dragged Ortiz down, firing with his free hand. Dust exploded around them. Reese didn't shoot. He just stepped back into shadow, his voice cutting through chaos. "We'll speak again, Vega, when you're ready." Then he was gone, just like that, the ghost disappearing into the dark. She fought like a machine, controlled, precise. Each breath matched each pull of the trigger. She bought them seconds, enough to move, enough to live. When the alley finally fell silent again, her chest heaved. The ground smelled of cordite and blood. Bodies lay twisted in the shadows, but not Reese's. Never Reese's. Malik slammed his rifle against the wall, fury shaking his voice. "What the hell was that? You knew him. Who is he?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to answer, to confess, to unload the truth she had carried like a stone, but the words died, not here, not yet. Instead, she said, "We keep moving." Ortiz groaned, pale with blood loss. Malik's glare burned. "Moving where? Toward what? You think command even cares anymore?" The bite in his words cut, because she had asked herself the same thing too many times. She steadied her voice, forcing strength into it. "We finish what we came for." Malik spat on the ground. "Even if it kills us." She met his eyes, tired eyes, angry eyes, the kind of eyes that had seen too much. "Yes," she said quietly, "because if we stop now, everything we've lost means nothing." The words hung heavy, heavier than the night. Malik didn't argue again. He just nodded, bitter, and lifted Ortiz. As they moved deeper into the ruins, her mind replayed Reese's voice over and over. His smile, his words, his promise of truth. And beneath it all, her brother's last line echoed louder. "Trust the ones bleeding next to you." She carried both voices inside her, clashing, tearing, refusing to settle. The desert wind rose, carrying sand across broken streets. And as they disappeared into the darkness, she realized the real battle hadn't started yet. It was waiting inside her. Why did the night feel heavier now, as if every shadow carried his voice? They moved slowly, each step a battle between exhaustion and necessity. Ortiz leaned against Malik, his breathing shallow, each groan reminding her of the clock ticking inside his body. She kept her eyes forward, scanning rooftops, alleys, windows. But in truth, she wasn't searching for enemies. She was listening for him. "Reese." Every sound in the ruins felt like his whisper. Every echo seemed to carry his promise. "We'll speak again, Vega, when you're ready." She hated how much it lingered. The mission loomed still, objective ahead, target unconfirmed, the extraction point uncertain. Yet beneath it all, her thoughts spiraled. What if Malik was right? What if Command didn't care whether they lived or died? What if Reese wasn't lying? But then she'd glance back at Ortiz, pale, trembling, his blood soaking through the makeshift bandage she'd tied. She'd see Malik, jaw tight, eyes burning with distrust but legs refusing to quit. And she'd know. They weren't just moving toward an objective. They were moving toward each other's survival. That was enough for now. The ruins narrowed into a long corridor of crumbled stone. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth. Somewhere nearby, a door creaked. A dog barked, then fell silent, as if shushed by unseen hands. Malik whispered sharply, "We're being watched." She raised a fist, signaling halt. The silence thickened. Then a faint shuffle, too close. Her rifle snapped up. A figure darted from the shadows, small, quick, not an armed fighter, a child. She froze. The boy couldn't have been more than 12, barefoot, clothes ragged. His eyes wide, dark, terrified, met hers. In his trembling hands he clutched a water jug, not a weapon. Ortiz whispered hoarsely, Don't shoot." Her chest tightened. The boy didn't speak, didn't blink. He just stared at her like he recognized her face, like he was weighing something she couldn't see. Then, just as suddenly, he turned and bolted down a side street. Malik swore under his breath, "He's a runner, he'll tell them." The words carved through her. Her training screamed one thing. Her humanity screamed another. Her finger hovered on the trigger, chasing a shadow already gone. She lowered her weapon, her voice trembling but firm. "No, not him." Malik's jaw clenched. He didn't argue, but his silence was louder than any words. They pushed forward. Minutes later, the boy's choice echoed in reality. Gunfire cracked ahead, controlled, precise, too precise. Malik cursed. He led them straight to us. She didn't reply, her gut twisted, but she forced it down. Regret wouldn't save them, only action. She signaled left, pushing them into an abandoned structure. Dust fell from the ceiling as bullets tore into the walls outside. Ortiz coughed, each breath weaker than the last. Inside, the building was dark, suffocating. The air reeked of rot and old fire. Broken furniture lay scattered like bones. She crouched near a shattered window, rifle aimed, scanning the alley. Shapes moved in the distance. 5, maybe 6 fighters, closing in. Her pulse steadied, her breathing slow. She could feel Malik's glare on her back, but he stayed silent, rifle ready. And then another sound, a whistle, 3 sharp notes, not from the fighters, from somewhere else. Her stomach dropped. She knew that signal, Reese. The fighters shifted direction, as if herded by unseen command. They spread, forming a net around the building. This wasn't chaos. This was orchestration. Her voice caught in her throat. He wasn't just watching. He was guiding them, testing her. Malik's voice broke the tension, sharp with accusation. "This is on you. He's after you." She didn't deny it. She couldn't. But before she could answer, Ortiz groaned, collapsing harder against the wall. She knelt beside him, pressing fresh gauze to his wound. His eyes fluttered, unfocused. "I'm not making it, am I?" he whispered. Her throat closed. "Don't you dare say that." He gave a weak smile, the kind of smile that comes when truth is too heavy to hide. "You remind me of my sister, stubborn, always believed she could carry the world." His breath hitched. "You can't carry it all, Vega. Don't try." Her vision blurred. She blinked it back, forcing steel into her tone. "You're going home, do you hear me? You're going home." But even as she said it, a voice inside her whispered that promises meant little in this place. The gunfire outside grew louder. The fighters were closer. Malik's eyes met hers. Fury, fear, and something else, resignation. If we stay, we die. If we move, he's waiting. So what's it going to be? The choice hung between them. Death in walls or death in open air, both painted by Reese's hand. She rose, rifle steady, heart torn. "We move." They pushed out into the night, bullets chasing them instantly. Sparks erupted from stone, dust choking their lungs. She fired back not to kill but to carve space to breathe. Malik dragged Ortiz, grunting, cursing under his breath. And then the street ahead cleared. For a moment, just a moment, there was silence, a corridor of escape. But at the far end, under a broken archway, stood Reese, alone, calm, waiting. Her steps faltered, Malik froze, Ortiz whimpered weakly. Reese raised no weapon, he just looked at her, eyes piercing through chaos. "You see it now, don't you?" She wanted to scream, to fire, to collapse. Instead, she whispered, more to herself than anyone, "Why can't you just let me fight the enemy I can see?" Reese tilted his head. "Because the enemy you can't see is the one that kills you slow." Her finger tightened on the trigger. Every fiber of her being screamed to end it here, to erase the ghost before it consumed her. But Ortiz groaned again, collapsing heavier in Malik's arms. She looked back, saw the blood, the desperation. Her choice was stolen by their reality. Survival, always survival. She fired not at Reese but at the ground near his feet. Dust exploded, smoke rising between them. In the chaos, she pulled Malik and Ortiz into the side alley, heart pounding, throat raw with unspoken words. When the dust cleared, Reese didn't chase. He just watched, a silhouette against the ruin, waiting, always waiting. They stumbled through the darkness, breathless, broken, but alive. And as the night stretched on, she realized something she didn't want to admit. She wasn't just fighting him. She was fighting the part of herself that almost wanted to believe him. Why did the air feel so still, as if the desert itself was holding its breath for her choice? The night was almost gone. A faint gray touched the horizon, promising dawn, promising nothing. Vega's legs burned from carrying both weight and silence. Malik staggered beside her, one arm around Ortiz, whose body felt lighter and heavier all at once. Every step was survival, every heartbeat was defiance. But in the cracks between each moment, her mind was filled with Reese. His words, his eyes, his betrayal, his truth or his lie. They stumbled into the skeleton of an abandoned school, its walls pocked with holes, its chalkboards blackened with soot. The smell of dust and old fire lingered, a graveyard of forgotten lessons. Malik lowered Ortiz onto the floor, his jaw tight. "He's fatting," he said, voice like gravel. She dropped beside Ortiz, fingers finding his pulse, faint but still there. She pressed fresh bandages, whispering steady words she didn't believe. "Stay with us, just a little longer. The extractions close." But Ortiz's eyes opened, glassy, searching hers. His lips trembled. Don't lie for me." Her throat burned. "I'm not lying." He gave the faintest smile. "You always believed, even when the rest didn't. Hold on to that, Vega. Don't let him take it from you." Her chest squeezed. She wanted to promise. She wanted to swear she'd carry him out. But promises weighed heavy, and sometimes they shattered under the desert sky. Before she could answer, Malik's hand pressed her shoulder firm, his voice low. "We can't stay here. They'll find us." Her eyes flicked to the window. The horizon glowed faintly now. Dawn, and with it exposure, no more shadows to hide them. She rose, her body trembling with exhaustion but her rifle steady. "Then we moved to the extraction point, no matter what." Malik's stare was hard, and if Reese is waiting. She swallowed. Her silence was answer enough. They lifted Ortiz again, his weight dragging both their souls lower. The school doors creaked as they pushed into the gray light. The world looked different at dawn, colors softer, shadows retreating, but the danger sharper. Every rooftop, every alley felt alive with unseen eyes. They moved faster now, as if the sunrise itself was chasing them. Sweat stung her eyes, her hands raw against the rifle. Malik's breath came ragged, Ortiz's weaker still. Then ahead smoke, thin, rising in steady spirals, the extraction marker. Her chest surged with hope, fragile and sharp. "There, we're close." Malik almost laughed, bitter. "Close means nothing unless we live to touch it." And then gunfire. The crack tore through the dawn. Ortiz jerked, a gasp caught in his throat. Blood bloomed fresh across his chest. Malik cried out, dragging him down. "No," she shouted, diving beside them, firing blindly toward the sound. Echoes bounced, but no target revealed itself. The world blurred, chaos in slow motion. Ortiz's hand found hers, weak, shaking. His lips parted, breath shallow. Don't stop." Her tears blurred everything, but her grip on him was fierce. "Hold on, please, just hold on." His fingers tightened once, then loosened. The stillness that followed was louder than gunfire. Malik's roar shook the air, raw with grief. He fired into the ruins, screaming curses, as if rage itself could bring Ortiz back. But Vega just knelt there, hands still on Ortiz's chest, feeling the silence spread like poison. Her brother's words echoed in her head, "Trust the ones bleeding next to you." And now one of them was gone. The ache inside her hardened into something else, not despair, not yet, something sharper, resolve. She rose slowly, her rifle clenched like a vow. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking. "We finish this for him." Malik's eyes were red, his face streaked with dust and tears. He gave a single nod. No more arguments, just fury and loyalty entwined. They pushed forward. Ortiz's body left where it fell, a weight she'd carry forever. The extraction zone was just ahead, a clearing of broken stone, smoke marking the point. And standing in its center, waiting, was Reese. Her chest hollowed. He looked calm, almost serene, as if the chaos of the night hadn't touched him. His rifle slung casually across his back, his hands open. "You made it," he said softly. Malik's gun snapped up instantly. His voice was venom. "You bastard." But Vega raised a hand, stopping him, her eyes locked on Reese. "Why?" The word broke out of her like a wound. Reese's face shifted, a flicker of something, regret, or just performance. He took a step closer. "Because I couldn't bury another soldier for a war that doesn't care about us," he said. "Because your brother, he knew. He tried to tell me, and when no one listened, he died for it." Her stomach dropped. "Don't you dare use his name." "It's not using," Reese said, his tone low, intimate. "It's honoring. He saw what you see now, the truth. That command, our own people, sent us here not to win, not to protect, but to keep the game alive, to sacrifice us so others could profit." Her vision swam, rage and grief colliding. Then why align with them? Why work with the same fighters killing us? His eyes hardened. "Because the enemy of your enemy is your leverage. I'm not their ally, I'm using them. The only way to break the system is to fracture it from within." Malik spat on the ground. "You're a traitor, that's all you are." Reese didn't even look at him. His gaze stayed on Vega. "No, I'm the only one willing to see past the lie. And so are you. I know you feel it, that doubt, that fire. You don't belong to them. You never did. Walk with me. And this time it's not about survival, it's about change." The silence that followed was unbearable. The wind carried the smell of smoke, the sound of distant gunfire, the weight of choice. Her mind screamed. Her heart bled. She thought of her brother, of Ortiz, of Malik still standing at her side. She thought of every loss, every question, every night staring at the ceiling wondering if it was worth it. And she realized Reese was right about one thing. She did doubt, she always had. But doubt didn't mean surrender. Doubt didn't mean betrayal. Doubt meant she still cared enough to question, and caring was not weakness. Her rifle lifted steady, aimed at Reese's chest. His smile faded, his eyes narrowing. "Don't." Her voice cracked, but her words cut clean. "You were my mentor, my brother trusted you, and you broke both." The dawn light struck her face, fierce and unyielding. "I don't walk with ghosts." She squeezed the trigger. The shot echoed through the ruins, final and sharp. Reese staggered, eyes wide, disbelief flashing before they dulled. He fell, the dust rising around him like a curtain closing. The silence after was absolute. Malik exhaled, shoulders sagging, grief and relief tangled. He looked at her, voice rough. You did what had to be done. But she didn't answer. She just stared at the smoke rising, the sky lightening, the horizon opening. Minutes later, the rumble of rotors split the air. The extraction bird descended, blades scattering dust across the field. Malik grabbed her arm. Come on, we're not done yet. She nodded slowly, her body moving but her mind somewhere else. As they climbed aboard, the crew pulled Malik in, their hands reaching for her next. She paused at the door, one last glance at the ruins below, at the place where Ortiz fell, at the place where Reese fell. The desert was silent again, but not empty. It carried voices she'd never stop hearing. She stepped inside. The doors slammed shut. The helicopter lifted, carrying her away but not freeing her. Because she knew the truth now, victory didn't roar. It didn't celebrate, it whispered, through loss, through loyalty, through acts unseen. She closed her eyes, letting the hum of the rotors drown her thoughts. A single line lingered in her mind, heavy and true. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And in that silence she carried them all.